The revolt of East Therefore, during many years, Joseph Stalin was the absolute leader of the Soviet Union. He established a one-party state in which everybody would obey him and only him. During Stalin's rule, citizens of satellite countries had to live under a regime which included an economy absolutely dependent on the USSR, producing mostly what the USSR needed in complete disregard of consumer needs. In those states, all private enterprise was nationalized. There was absolute social and ideological control, censorship, constant presence of Soviet troops, suppression of religious freedoms, and political purges. After Stalin's death in 1953, Khrushchev came to power and people saw a glimpse of hope in his new de-Stalinization policy, which he proclaimed in 1956. As this policy made him appear more moderate and less scary than Stalin, unhappy citizens from satellite states decided to take the opportunity and rid their country of Soviet control. The major challenge the USSR encountered itself with was from Yugoslavia's popular leader Marshal Tito. During this time, Stalin was still alive and the absolute ruler of the Soviet Union. The Yugoslavs were able to mount an effective campaign against the Nazis during World War II and had succeeded in liberating their country in 1945. One of the main resistance leaders, Marshal Tito, who was head of the Yugoslav Communist Party and enjoyed great popularity due to his role against the Germans, was elected leader of the new republic.
Even within communist ranks, the voice of rebellion was heard. Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia turned on his Kremlin masters, once his bosom buddies. Facing the full fury of Soviet revenge on all sides, Yugoslavia was turned into an armed camp, ready for a fight to the finish. Tito, man of the year.
As a measure of brutal revenge that we all already know from Stalin's rule, he introduced East European purge trials, attacking everybody who was a suspected Titoist, basically anybody who in any way ever showed support for Tito and his government. And so, throughout Stalin's rule, relations with Yugoslavia and the USSR remained hostile. However, when Khrushchev came to power and condemned Stalin for his use of terror, relations between Yugoslavia and the USSR improved. He intended to restore relations and visited Tito on many occasions. A major challenge to Soviet control appeared in East Germany. The relaxation of control in combination with repression had led to major discontent among workers. This triggered the Berlin riots in 1953. The East was facing a major crisis during this period, as due to poor living standards and bad working conditions, many workers from the East immigrated to the West through the open border of Berlin.
A new red threat to West Berlin recalls Stalin's blockade of 1947 and the airlift that saved the free enclave from starvation. Now, with the city a dramatic oasis of cultural and economic advance in the heart of communist East Germany, Khrushchev's demand that the United States, France, and Britain agree to end the four-power pact governing West Berlin, turning it over to Red East Germany, hints a new and major crisis. The Western powers reacted strongly, affirming their determination to keep the city free. It's an outpost in telling contrast to shabby, bedraggled East Berlin.
The revolt of East Germans was the first time something like this had happened to the Soviet Union, and they quickly suppressed this by sending Red Army troops. Therefore, the idea of having a friendly neutral Germany was abandoned, once again revealing the popular dislike of Soviet control. Challenge to the USSR was found in Poland. In June 1956, Polish workers rebelled, and in a few months the Polish communist Władysław Gomułka, who was priorly expelled by Stalin and condemned, was brought back to political prominence. He implemented a rapid de-Stalinization program. In fear of losing control over Poland, Khrushchev flew to Warsaw and Soviet military forces moved into an intimidating position. Gomułka reacted and refused to be intimidated by Khrushchev. Instead, to comfort Khrushchev, he told him that he had no intention of taking Poland out of the Warsaw Pact. This calmed Khrushchev's fears, and he agreed to allow Gomułka to remain in power. This was the first time a satellite country participated in the choice of a leader. Throughout the years, Poland's economic situation remained poor. This led to food shortages and major dissatisfaction among workers. Eventually, Polish shipyard workers went on strike, led by Lech Walesa. They were successful in securing political rights and obtained permission to create free trade unions, which led to the establishment of the free trade union movement, which became known as Solidarity. By 1981, Solidarity had more than 10 million members and was perceived as a major threat to the USSR. And so, the USSR sent the Red Army to the Polish borders, but they didn't invade yet. Stanislav Kania, the new Polish leader, convinced Brezhnev, who took over from Khrushchev, that he could restore order himself. Also, the USA's warning against the use of force made Brezhnev think it over twice. General Wojciech Jaruzelski led a coup d'etat in 1981 and established the martial law, banning solidarity and arresting thousands of activists. In 1983, the country restored, but the economic problems were still there. A major challenge that Brezhnev faced as the new leader of the Soviet Union was encountered in Czechoslovakia. Conscious of what had happened to Hungary in 1956, he was careful to assure the USSR that Czechoslovakia would stay in the Warsaw Pact and remain a valuable ally. Nevertheless, Brezhnev and other leaders of the Warsaw Pact decided to restore power. They invaded Czechoslovakia and ended the Prague Spring, and a new first secretary was assigned, Gustav Husak. This Prague Spring resulted in the establishment of the new Brezhnev Doctrine. Overall, as we can realize, the Soviet Union's control was always challenged, as they always imposed themselves on other countries by force. Their terror system, absolute enforcement of their ideology, created an overall dislike. Therefore, it is no wonder that with time people started fighting the regime imposed by the Soviets, which eventually led to the collapse of the Soviet Union.